أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. There are some words in the Arabic scriptures which are asserted for God, yet they signify the meanings which are the part of physical or material bodies or segments of these bodies or organs of them when they are referred to human beings. But on the contrary, when they refer to God, they signify the meaning of attributes. And ambiguity occurs that those who interpret them literally. So there are two groups in Ahlussunnah. The majority interpret them non-literally, and there is no such problem with them. And there is a minority in Ahlussunnah which interpret them literally. So they have some problems, and ambiguity occurs when those amongst Ahlussunnah, a minority, interpret them literally. They are it is often considered that they are anthropomorphic, or they believe that God has a spiritual body and they are the parts, segments and organs of the divine spiritual body. But even from the point of view of the minority of Ahlussunnah or Ahlussunnah literalists, it is not. It is a heresy when someone believes that there are two different notions in God. First, the notion of attributes, and second, the notion of parts, segments, and organs. If someone says such a thing, he is a heretic and probably apostate. What these people say is that these words, when asserted for God, mean attributes like mercy, justice, power, etc. This view is quite difficult to understand, and it is not correct to misunderstand them if they are difficult to understand. For example, we have there are two words, hands and foot. When the words like hands or hand, foot refer to human beings, they refer to the parts of human body and not to the attributes, as when we refer to the words like justice, mercy and power to human beings. When the words like justice and power and mercy, when we refer these words to a human being, they refer to attributes and not to the parts. This is a problem. But when the words are referred to God, the words like hands, eye, or foot, when these words are referred to God, they are pure attributes like mercy, justice and power. So when the word hand referred to God, the nature of the word hand is same as the nature of the word mercy. That is, that both have the attributic nature, or their nature is of attributes. Anyone who asserts two types of notion, i.e. attributes to parts, this is a heresy as mentioned above. Another cause of the misconception is due to the words like body and substance for God by some of these literal interpreters. When a group of literal interpreters in Ahlussunnah use such words for God, I mean body or substance, and also assert the words like hands, foot, eye for God, many people are inclined to assume that they believe that these are the parts, organs and segments of the divine body or divine substantial body constituted of an unknown substance. This is the problem. Once again, it is absolutely wrong concept. Such literalists use the words like body and substance for God only in the meaning of per se subsistence. That is, the divine self is per se subsistence. The meaning has no other meaning. These words, substance and body, when referred to God, has no other meaning except per se subsistence. So this is the thing, Qaim binafsihi and Qiyam binafsihi. The meaning has nothing to do with such words. So when we say that these people use the word hand of God and use the word body of God, there is no connection between the two. The word hand, according to them, is not a part of God. Is not a segment of God. It is not an organ of God. And the word body, when used for God, only means that God is per se subsistent. So this is the problem, and this meaning has nothing to do with such words. As anti-Islamic objection makers take the opportunity to misinterpret the difficult dogma which has a complex interpretation. Now I want to say that the minority of Ahlussunnah who opt the literal interpretation of such words are in a great problem, and the problem is that their dogma is very difficult to understand by a person, and when a person listens to them and does not or cannot understand them properly, what happens? He is inclined to assume that they are anthropomorphic believers. This is the problem. Now there's a problem which also cause another problem, and that is that they try to defend themselves. The minority try to defend themselves by saying that the divine hands are not like the hands of humans, or they say divine hands are not like the hand of are not like us, or not like our hands. So this expression is incorrectly interpreted or incorrectly rendered by many anti-Islamic objection makers. What they say that these people believe that God has parts of body, organs of body, segments of body, but they are different from the human parts of body, segments of body, and organs of body. But this is not the case. When they use the word eye for God, they do not mean an organ of God, but they mean that it is an attribute of God, and the nature of attribute of eye is, in the case of God or in the divine case, is just like the nature of attribute of justice or mercy or power. So this is their view, and one must understand that majority of Ahlussunnah do not accept this view. However, what reason they do not accept this is their interpretation or their literal interpretation. Number one, it is extremely difficult to understand, and a person who cannot understand them properly inclines to believe that they are anthropomorphic. Another point that is more powerful in nature is that when a person says that the word hand, when referred to God, does not mean a part of body, then this is an interpretation in the first place and somewhat hidden in nature. So they say that when you use the word for God, and you say that the word hand does not mean an organ, the word hand does not mean a segment, the word hand does not mean a part of body, then, and it only means an attribute, then it is an interpretation, and this interpretation is not literal, and they try to defend themselves by extending the meaning of literal interpretation from parts of body to attributes. That is, the divine hand is an attribute. The divine hand is not a part of body. The divine hand is not a segment of body. The divine hand is not an organ of the body of God. So when they say such a thing, the majority of Ahlussunnah say that this is an hidden interpretation, but they have not realized that they are interpreting somehow. So this is the problem in the nutshell. Now I come to show some fallacies. First of all, some the literal interpreters constitute a small majority in Ahlussunnah. They are a small majority, and the great majority they are in a small minority, and the great majority of Ahlussunnah do not interpret literally, but they interpret non-literally. So they say that this is incorrect, and they are answering these literalists since ages, since centuries, or for centuries, you may say. So I am saying that it is a fallacy to ascribe the belief of a minority to the majority of Ahlussunnah. So it is a fallacy. Number two, there is another fallacy that some anti-Islamic objection makers ascribe the beliefs or views or dogmas of a minority of Ahlussunnah to the entirety of Ahlussunnah. This is another fallacy, or rather it is a greater fallacy. So why such fallacies arise? That there are some extremists in literalists, Ahlussunnah, who declare anyone who interprets non-literally out of the fold of Ahlussunnah. There are some fanatics like that. So due to them, some people are inclined to believe in them, but the majority of Ahlussunnah still believe and support the belief that such words are not in the literal meaning. So by the word divine hand, they do not mean hand, they do not mean any new attribute or any unknown attribute, but they mean power. By the word divine foot, they mean divine power, and they further differentiate between different types of attribute. And on the contrary, the literalists generally do not differentiate different types of attribute. We in our own terminology say that according to the literalists, all the attributes are essential attributes. But on the contrary, the majority of Ahlussunnah divide the attributes in many different types. For example, essential attributes, non-essential attributes, and the non-essential attributes is further divided in two types. Number one is active attribute, and the number two is relative attribute. So, and you may also try to add some moral attributes, but we consider moral attributes as a subdivision in relative or active attributes. So what are the problem? The problem is that these Ahlussunnah who try to interpret literally claim that they are explaining these words literally, but in the nutshell, or in the as a result, they just believe that divine hand is an attribute which is not the attribute of power, which is not the attribute of mercy, which is not the attribute of creation, which is not the attribute of any other known attribute, but it is an attribute which is unknown. So I hope that many people might have understood by now that these people, what is the meaning, what is the dogma of this minority of Ahlussunnah, but I don't think so that they are to be misinterpreted just because that their majority do not agree with them. So I hope that everything is now made clear.